The strangest unsolved mysteries from each state. Today we have Nevada. Terry McClure disappeared after leaving her son Tim's wedding in Lake Tahoe in 1983. 3 days later, she was found dead in a Carson City casino parking lot. Tim and Terry were really close, they even lived together, and so he was very upset when he found out that his mother was found in the parking lot and that she had been shot in the head twice. She was also believed to have died the night of his wedding. The police actually started looking at Tim as the main suspect in Terry's murder. They said they had circumstantial evidence that pointed at him for being responsible for her murder. Something that the police found very suspicious was that the day before her disappearance, he canceled all of her credit cards. And a few months before her death, Terry had taken out a $10,000 life insurance policy with Tim as the co-beneficiary. In other words, if she dies, he gets $10,000. Tim was arrested after he appeared on the show Unsolved Mysteries, but the case was dismissed when the DA declined to prosecute him. And some of Tim's family members publicly state that they think he's guilty. Story time. Thank you, Tiffany, for sending me the story. So Tiffany and her sister were at the beach facing away from the water, and it was getting dark, the tide was coming in, and they heard these crying noises that kind of sounded like they were coming from the ocean, so they called the police, to make sure everything's okay. So the police show up, they check everywhere, and they don't find anything, so they send out boats to go out even further, just in case somebody's all the way out there. So this started late at night, but this was a party night, so this went all the way till 6 a.m., and everybody had pretty much left. Tiffany and her sister had stayed a little bit longer, and right then comes a woman running out of the alleyway from the nightclub area. She's visibly upset, completely drenched in water as if she had gone swimming, and so Tiffany kind of finds this weird, so she calls the police again, and right as that happens, the girl runs onto the pier and jumps off. Tiffany and her sister are freaking out, the police boats and everything show up, and they send them home. A few days later, the police contact Tiffany and ask to meet up so they can ask questions about that night. So the police told Tiffany that the crying came from the woman that was jumping off of the pier. She had done this multiple times that night, swimming far out so that the current and the rough waters could drag her under and kill her. Story is not over by any means yet. Part 2 is coming right now. Part 2 of the lady jumping off of the pier. So she was jumping off, trying to swim out really far so that the rough waters and the current could drag her under and kill her. She just didn't want to live anymore. The police told Tiffany that then, 2 hours later, she was found on a different pier trying to do the same thing. Thankfully, the police got to her in time and took her away to a hospital where she can get the help that she needs. Tiffany witnessed this and everything, and this all happened 5 years ago. And so recently, right before COVID, Tiffany gets on a bus and she sits down. And she looks up, and sitting right across from her is the same lady. And she's there with 2 little kids, and she recognizes Tiffany. And she tells her more about that night and how she was going through a really bad relationship, she was having a really hard time, and she just wanted to end it all. But there she sat, now married with 2 beautiful little girls, and she tells Tiffany that if it wasn't for her calling the police, that she would have died, not knowing her future. I love this story. I'm so glad that Tiffany sent it to me, not to be cheesy, but I think that this is a very strong message for people who are going through a really rough time. I promise you it will get better. There is a future waiting for you, and if this isn't proof, then I don't know what is. The strangest unsolved mysteries from each state. Today we have Idaho. Idaho or Idaho? In 1982, a man wandered into the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Boise, Idaho, where it appeared as if he was standing in line for confessional. Which is where you tell a person in a box all your little dirty secrets. He never made it to the booth. In fact, when it was his turn to go, he was dead on the floor. It was later determined that he had swallowed a cyanide capsule, although nobody knows whether it was intentional or forced. In his pockets, they found a lot of cash with a note that said the money was for his funeral. The note was signed WML Toomey, which is a company that manufactures and sells priest clothing. It gets even weirder. 1 year before his death, 2 priests in Arizona were found murdered with a wrongfully convicted suspect held at fault. The man who died in the church was wearing a belt buckle that was traced back to Arizona, and a lot of people think that he was the one who murdered those 2 priests. So do you think his death was a suicide or a retaliation murder? Do you think he was at confession to confess all of his crimes or commit another one? What's the deal with the money in his pocket saying that it's for his funeral? I wonder if they actually used it for his funeral or just pocketed the cash.